In the fall of 2020, when I visited the Metropolitan Museum's exhibition of highlights of its 150 years of collecting, I came upon this painting. As I was asking myself whether I'd seen its image years earlier on the cover of a short story I'd read about a woman and her parrot by the 19th century French novelist Gustave Flaubert, I heard an answer, and I gradually recognized the voice. It was Gustave Flaubert himself, the author of this short story. After my novel Madame Bovary was published, I wrote an outline for a short story that I would call Un cœur simple, or in English translation, A Simple Heart, about a woman and her parrot. So, at the Paris Salon of 1868, when I saw this painting of a woman with a parrot, at first I was surprised that an artist had just painted an image that could be an illustration for the short story I was starting to write. But then I realized that artists are more or less related to parrots. On its perch, detached and attentive to detail, a parrot studies a scene like an artist, interpreting sounds and sights with the eye of a watchful observer. Tim, have you ever spent time with a parrot? Yes, a mini macaw called Verdi. She's been my companion for over 25 years. So you know that parrots, since they are able to talk, are not ordinary pets. But behind their endearing words seethes a frustration at having to neglect the call of the wild just for the sake of communication with another species. As I once wrote in a letter to my girlfriend, we creators are more or less parrots. We feel we have wings, but we live in cages. And the wider our wingspan, the heavier life weighs upon us. When an artist puts a parrot in the picture, he projects his own torment into his work, consciously or unconsciously. Take Delacroix. In his lifetime, he was unable to commit to a lasting love with another person, perhaps fearing, like me, that such intimacy would reduce his life to petty domesticity. The small size of his parakeet in relation to the woman acknowledges Delacroix's commitment phobia. Gustave Courbet enjoyed challenging, polite society. His blue-fronted macaw is doubtless more excited at being in a scandalous work of art than by the woman lying naked beneath him. Like Courbet, the parrot is an enfant terrible, delighted to be in the spotlight and to participate in the emergence of modernity. Giovanni Battista Tiepolo created this painting when he was 64 years old, in great demand in Venice as a painter. The starlit macaw making direct eye contact with the viewer could be a kind of self-portrait of the artist as a parrot, in the company of the kind of alluring young woman elderly artists furtively desire. This painting, Gustave, was shown in an exhibition in England entitled The Parrot in Art. The exhibition catalogue by Professor Richard Verdi observed the versatile role of parrots in art. But unlike you, he does not claim that parrots project the personalities of the artists. Commenting on this painting, he wrote, quote, "It is hard to regard the parrot as much more than a studio prop. It's just a splash of color to counterbalance the red carpet." Unquote. As Professor Verdi suggests, a parrot in a work of art is like the parakeet of pearls and enameled gold in this antique neck pendant. Endearing, perhaps, but just an ornamental decorative prop that tells us very little about the personality of its creator. I disagree with Richard Verdi. Gazing out of at least one eye toward the young woman arranging her toilette, the parrot layers sexuality on her silhouette. The starlit macaw, like the artist who painted this picture, is a bit of a voyeur. The parrot energizes the picture's male gaze. Your English sounds up to date, Gustave, but I had a girlfriend in London for a long while. Gustave, you look at parrots and unveil innuendo. I see happiness in plain view. This artist painted a series of lovebirds a few years after she got married. Her pairs of lovebirds intimate the success of her marriage. The parrots in this self-portrait brandish the many love affairs this artist had with men and women. The artist who created these shadow boxes is known to have been infatuated with famous movie actresses like Audrey Hepburn and Lauren Bacall. His parrots evoke these exotic stars, no longer hopelessly unavailable, but pinned down inside his boxes to join him in immortality. And as a lawyer, I tend to see things in relative terms. So here at the Metropolitan Museum, when I encounter a parrot like one of these mice and porcelains, it looks incidental to what's on display. Or it turns up by happenstance, like the small wood sculpture of a parrot that's arrayed among the objects in the aisles of the Henry Luce Storage Center. In this video on view at New York's Museum of Modern Art, a fleeting yellow and green parakeet is just one of this work's random visual effects. As scientists discover when they study evolution, randomness has its reasons. In this painting, Rembrandt signed his name in an unusual spot on the top left, right behind a yellow-crowned Amazon, while a century or two earlier in his engraving of the Fall of Man, Albrecht Dürer also put his name on the top left, immediately below a ring-necked parakeet. This coincidence is not a random epiphenomenon. Both artists connect a parrot to their own name. But Gustave, if a parrot represents something more than a parrot, it is not the personality of a particular artist, but a broad cultural belief. The Pueblans who lived in what is now New Mexico are thought to have believed that animals spoke messages from ancestral spirits. If so, they probably carved this image of a macaw inside a cave surrounded by bright sunlight to reinforce this belief. The symbolism of the Alexandrine parakeet perched above a Yakshi earth spirit in this 2,000-year-old Bengalese terracotta probably dovetails with the later symbolism of parakeets near the Virgin Mary in medieval and Renaissance paintings. These parakeets were well-known religious metaphors for her immaculate purity, for the love that opens the door to inner peace. Tim, this symbolism was on its way out once Peter Paul Rubens picked up a brush. Here he is in a self-portrait with his son and his second wife. His choice to counterbalance the partially exposed breasts of his young wife with the fully exposed breasts of the statue behind him suggests that Rubens had a sense of humor. When he visited Madrid, Rubens saw this painting by Titian, The Fall of Man, and painted a copy of it, into which Rubens projected his sense of humor by inserting a parrot that stares warily at the devil who has tempted Eve to grab the fateful apple. The worried expression of this starlit macaw adds Rubenesque levity, because compared to the parrot, Adam and Eve look clueless about their impending expulsion from the Garden of Eden. Rubens's parrot intimates that after the fall, once the story of mankind started to get serious, the door to inner peace would no longer be opened by love, but by comic relief. Gustave, could Rubens have given his macaw a foreboding expression, not for comic relief, but because a parrot would sense that man's expulsion from the Garden of Eden foretold the removal of parrots out of the wilds of the Amazon? Already in Rubens's time, parrots were being captured by colonists in Brazil and shipped to Europe to live out life in captivity. Like you, Tim, Rubens owned a macaw. In his time, a macaw was a prestigious status symbol. I doubt Rubens was troubled by his parrot's colonial roots. Would you at least agree, Gustave, that there's a political dimension to the parrots in this installation by the Brazilian artist Hélio Oiticica? Entitled Tropicalia, and recently shown at the Listen Gallery in New York, the installation was first exhibited in 1967, at a time when Brazil was ruled by a dictatorial military junta. For many, the exotic blue-green winged macaws inside the large cage bring to mind the Amazonian tropical rainforest. But since this red-fronted species of parrot is called a military macaw, could these military macaws be impersonating and ridiculing the military generals who were in power when Oiticica first created this installation? It's possible. The caged macaws could reflect the mental state of an artist during a very repressive regime, during a period when for an artist like Oiticica, creating art could feel like laboring inside a large cage. Do you again see signs of an artist's mental state in the parrot in this sculpture? Yes, since the dismembered leg of a woman evokes a demented man's carnal urges, the stuffed parrot on top could represent the artist himself, camouflaging his predatory impulses with the green plumage that, in the rainforest, hides parrots from predators, but when the occasion arises, attracts a mate and helps satisfy sexual desires. You know, Tim, this stuffed parrot reminds me that I wrote A Simple Heart with a stuffed parrot on my desk. Were you the parrot in A Simple Heart? A Simple Heart, Tim, is the tale of a poor maid, Félicité, who gradually loses everything. You've read the book, and as a lawyer, you may remember how the parrot from its window laughs every time it sees the village lawyer walking down the street. I introduced the parrot in this tale for comic relief. So, yes, the parrot is more or less me, since I embedded the parrot to make the maid's unbearable life a bearable story. You know, I once said Madame Bovary is myself, and this statement became famous even though I myself do not fully understand what I meant. Maybe instead, I should have said more simply, in my short story A Simple Heart, the parrot, it is me.